everyone, my name is Ashley. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I make content to help encourage Christian singles. And if you've been here a while, welcome back. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we're building a community here where we can encourage and just share and hopefully just grow together in confidence that God is going before us. Today I wanted to talk about dating and like the highs and lows of dating. I recently shared that I had been single for an entire year. With that, I feel like I was really intentional with, not dating. And it wasn't like a purposeful year of singleness. Like I would have gone on a date if I felt, like someone met my standards. But honestly, I just didn't get that through the year. So, and it just happened to be a year. So if you want to watch that video, I'll attach it. But I'm just going to share a recent story out of my life and wanted to just be real with you guys. I feel like a lot of times my videos are just really what God has on my heart for the day. And most of the time it's something I don't really want to share because I'm like, this is too vulnerable. But yeah, I want to invite you guys in this journey because I know that you are also, trying to date and you're trying to find someone that is your person. And I don't really like that term, but like someone who is going to walk beside you in this Christian journey of just following Christ. And I recently met someone at my church, and I've actually never dated anyone in my church. And so I met him at a parade at our church, and we were like doing a parade, and he was there, and he went to a different service than I did, and so I didn't really know that he existed, but he was just like, what really struck me about him is he was very confident and very like outgoing. And so he ended up like after the parade like walking me back to my car and getting my phone number, which I was like, okay, this guy is really straightforward, and I appreciated that. And so we like hung out a couple times, and he was is a new believer. And in that, I think like it brought up like some concerns for me because obviously with a new believer, they're still, growing in the Lord and walking with the Lord. And I had told my mom, I was like, I just feel that, dating someone who is like new to God and new to Christianity, I just don't know like if we would mesh very well with that. And like her advice to me was like, well, God can change, someone really quickly if they're wanting to grow in relationship with the Lord. And I felt that, like I knew that that was true. But I just like getting to know him, I feel like I was more willing to like accept where he was than he was like willing to accept that for himself, because he hadn't ever dated like a Christian before. He had never waited before, but that was a conversation that we had. And I feel maybe not quite ready for all of that on his part, or he just, didn't really vibe with me, whatever the case is. And yeah, it was like 2 weeks of getting to know each other. But all that to say, like at the end of the day, it was hard knowing that he didn't want me, or he didn't want to like pursue a relationship because of like my standards. But I don't want to like put it all on him and say, well, those are all the reasons why. I think honestly, like our personalities were different. So But with that, the part that I'm trying to get to is just the disappointments in dating. I hadn't dated in like for a year. And so I think for me, I was just kind of expecting something that I see in other people's videos all the time, and I'm like so jealous of it, but I don't think that's my story, so I think I just need to let it go. But like girls will always share these stories about how, I told God I wasn't going to date anyone until God sends me like the man he has for me. And it's like, it's a weird thing because I'm like, how does that happen? Because you don't know if someone is for you unless you date them, and if it turns out that they're not for you, then, like where's the lines in that? And I just like, I think in the back of my mind was expecting, okay, like I have waited for a year, like God's seen me waiting. He knows my heart. He knows that I want to find a godly husband. And I think in my mind, I was just thinking, oh, this is going to work out because, I've done things God's way. And when it didn't, I was like dejected. I felt that, I was like, God, what the heck? Like, I've waited for you. I've really tried to like grow in my relationship with you and grow just as a person. And I was praying about it and not really sure what to share on here. And I just felt like I want to share that sometimes things don't go the way that we planned, and people, for whatever reason, are not going to choose us. And it could be that our personalities don't mesh, it could be that they're just in a different place than you are, and that's okay. Like, I think where the enemy tries to get at us as believers is just feeling that no one is going to choose you and no one is going to fight for you or, mesh with you, that somehow there's something wrong with you. And I think those are just real human emotions that we feel, when something doesn't work out. And maybe I think the temptation is either to get that person to like you by pretending to be something that you're not, or, reaching out to them and being like, hey, like, just give me a shot or whatever. But I don't think that's necessarily a good idea because someone should be interested in you because of who you are. And if they're not, like, being willing to accept that they're just not interested. And I also think the other side of that is that you could fall into, I don't want to use the word depression, but just like a state where you're just so discouraged in dating. And I know for myself, like, dating is just really hard. And it's like, why am I going to put myself out there just to be discouraged again and just to be rejected again? And I honestly think that's where the enemy wants us to be, like so discouraged and so lacking in hope that someone will choose us or that there's going to be someone who will fight for us, that we just give up. And I think that's what I was tempted with when, when we had our conversation about like if he was interested in me or not. And I just feel I was like so like, I don't want to use the word hurt, but I was just like, I'm like willing to meet you where you are. Like, I just felt like I had really like grown as a person and I was so proud of myself. And just to not have that reciprocated was hard. It was hard, but at the end of the day, I want someone to be honest with me. And if they're not feeling it for whatever reason, then I need to be willing to accept like that God has his best for me. And even if I have waited a year, that isn't like a reward system. God doesn't work on reward systems. It's just walking in faithfulness with the Lord. And I think that we need to really just set our minds on who we are in Christ when things don't go the way that we were hoping they would go. And I think that's really challenging when when you're dating, because you put all this hope into something, and when it doesn't work out, it's like, well, why would I try again whenever this outcome is so painful? It's like, like putting a band-aid on and ripping it off, is painful. But it's like, why would I want to go through that again? Like, there has to be a better way. But unfortunately, that is the dating scene. Like, you have to put yourself out there, and sometimes it is hard. It's hurtful. You get rejected, or, someone just isn't that interested in you, and that's okay. I think we need to not grow in bitterness. I think the temptation for me after our conversation was just to, like, be bitter towards God and bitter towards my situation. And I think God gets the glory when we make the choice to say, God, like, I'm hurt by this. I'm hurt that this person didn't see the value in me and doesn't see, like, the things that I have to offer, and for whatever reason didn't, like, value the person that I am. But to have enough confidence in God's goodness to know that even though someone didn't choose you, that doesn't mean that your dating story is over. And that doesn't mean that just because someone didn't value everything that you have to offer, that there isn't going to be someone who's not going to come into your life and value everything about you. And I want to encourage you not to put your hope in someone else. I think that's also where we can get really hurt in dating, is that we put our hope in a person instead of in God. And that was like another check in my spirit, like, as I was getting excited about this guy and just excited to be in a relationship again. And it didn't obviously work out. But I think for me, just recognizing, like, do I truly put my hope in God? Like, even though this was hard and discouraging, and, I don't really want to be dating again, I have to trust that God sees my heart and He sees my desires, and He knows that even though it's hard, He wants me to continue to try and continue to trust Him that He is going before me, and not to let bitterness seep into my heart. And I think that's the part of the dating, the highs and the lows, is willing to get back into the fight and not being a person who's bitter, and not being a person who hides their vulnerability. I think that was the other thing. Like, after our conversation, I was like, well, I don't really want to be vulnerable with someone again. I don't really want to, like, open my heart, like, even to the possibility of getting hurt. And that could just be me, but if it's you, if that resonates with you, of just feeling like you don't want to put your heart out there again because you don't want to get hurt, I just really want to challenge you with the fact that God has made you stronger than you think you are. He's made you with that desire for a spouse, so He will give you the strength to continue fighting for that if you allow Him to. We, as believers, we have a choice to fight, and we have a choice to give up. And that's kind of the thing about the Christian walk, is we grow in maturity as we surrender our hearts and our minds to Christ, and He renews our minds. But if we just kind of allow ourselves, down a road of hopelessness, or down a road that, not truly believing in God's character, that's where we can kind of get in the enemy's territory and believing his lies, and believing, that God doesn't have something good in store for us. And I wanted to make this video just because I want to remind you, God does have something good in store for you, even if no one has chosen you. I want to encourage you that you are enough, that just because someone didn't pick you and didn't see that in you does not mean that God has abandoned your hope. And I just want to encourage you to remain hope-filled, and to remain loving, and to remain kind, and not to allow just the hurtfulness of dating, even if the dating, was good. Like, I feel like, it was just, it was good for me. Like, it was good to talk to someone, and it was good to try. And even though it didn't work out, I can come away from that knowing, like, God, I trusted you through that. I trusted you. I tried and I made my attempt, but even though it didn't work out, I want to continue to trust you, and I want to continue to know that you are good. And um, this is like a side tangent. I wasn't going to talk about it, but there was a post that I saw, a friend had shared it, but just how like marriage has really changed over the years. Before, people would just get married like to have someone financially providing for them, or there wasn't like that mental and emotional connection. But now people are waiting a lot longer to get married. So you're spending time single a lot longer than, say, like 30 years ago. And so I think that shift of just really being mindful of who you're dating and mindful of the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with is really, it's important. And I feel like it's a really good shift that our culture has done. But in that, I think it can get discouraging when you do have those standards, especially if you don't see someone who meets those standards. And like in my last video, just part of that is trusting that God is bringing someone who meets those standards and who is going to complement you in your walk with the Lord. And I don't think that you should be looking for a perfect person, but you should be looking for a person who loves Jesus the most. And that person is going to honor and respect you, and they're going to be someone that you can walk beside. And so I just thank you for watching this video. I just want to encourage you, if you've been really frustrated with dating, that you're not alone in that frustration. But I don't want you to give up. I don't want you to throw in the towel, because God has something good for you. He has a spouse for you, and He has someone who is just going to run with God, and they're going to just be that person that glorifies God and that builds the kingdom. And I'm hoping for that in my own life, and I'm hoping that for you. And so I just thank you for watching, and I just pray that your day is blessed.